Andreas. Andres says hello, Andreas. Hello, Andreas. Gertner Farm. Player says Andres Schmidt's smithy. It's so much smaller than the one he uses at the Abbey. Gertner Farm. Gertner Farm. Veronica says Martin, please. Can you give me a hand here? Martin says what do you want? I'm keeping an eye on them. Veronica says that looks a lot like standing there and doing nothing. Hetty says Martin. For Christ's sake, help your cousin. Veronica says morning Andreas. Excuse us. One of the fence rails fell and the sheep started hopping it. Option 1 of 3 is there something I can do to help? Option 2 of 3 no, excuse me. I'll try to stay out of your way. Option 3 of 3 Martin, idiot, you going to help them? Option 1 of 3 is there something I can do to help? Veronica says have you ever handled sheep before? Option 1 of 2 well, no. Veronica says then no, but thank you. Christian of you to offer. Hetty says oh, look, there's something going on up at the Steinauer's place. Martin says who's that on the horse? Looks rich. Hetty says I don't know, Martin, but Lucky is giving him an earful. Christ, I haven't seen Lucky that worked up since Peter and Clara's wedding when Johann pulled his pants down. Knocked 2 of my man's teeth out. You don't want to feel the strength behind a stonemason's anger. Martin says do you think he's a noble? He looks really rich. Hetty says god damn it, Martin. Stay out of trouble for once. Martin says what, Aunt Hetty? Veronica says behave yourself. Don't we have enough to deal with right now? Hetty says Andreas, if you wouldn't mind moving your skinny little body up the road, we need to get these sheep under control. Player says of course. See you later. Option 1 of 3 don't work too hard, Martin. Option 2 of 3 good luck. Option 3 of 3 help your aunt and your cousin, alright? Martin says eat shit, Andreas. Martin, Hetty. Veronica. Church and Druckers. Drucker House. Klaus says morning, Andreas. How's it going? Player says morning, Klaus. Another day at the Abbey, another few hours to work on my masterpiece. Klaus says good to hear. You still coming by for supper tonight? Marie and Bert would love to see you. You really need to see these new woodcuts I have for an Italian edition of Till Eulenspiegel. Player says I didn't realize Father Thomas let you print books in Italian. Klaus says come on, Andreas, he's not that strict. I know he's just trying to protect people from. Option 1 of 4 heresy, option 2 of 4 witch mania. Option 3 of 4 adventure stories of questionable moral repute. Option 4 of 4 your sloppy typesetting. Option 3 of 4 adventure stories of questionable moral repute. Klaus says he doesn't mind those so much, actually. Player says no. Klaus says as long as they don't get too carnal. Player says ooh. Klaus says so, supper tonight, after Vespers? Option 1 of 2, of course. Thank you. Option 2 of 2 we'll see. Option 1 of 2, of course. Thank you. Klaus says great. I'll tell Marie and Bert you're coming. See you then. Player says see you later. Klaus. Klaus says morning, Andreas. Drucker. Klaus. Thomas says God bless, Master Mailer. I hope your week is going well. Option 1 of 2 thank you, Father. It's going quite well. I'm just on my way up the hill to get to work. Option 2 of 2 thank you, Father, but I'm running late to the Abbey. Option Thomas says good, good. Andreas, I don't recall seeing you at Sunday morning Mass. You understand how important it is for your salvation that you receive Holy Communion, don't you? Option 1 of 3 yes. I apologize, Father Thomas. I promise you I'll make it this Sunday. Option 2 of 3 I do, but I've been working on sketches late at night and Option 3 of 3 sigh. Option 2 of 3 I do, but I've been working on sketches late at night and Thomas says Andreas, this is about more than your success in this life. There is Anno. Oh, my. What a blessed day to receive such an illustrious visitor. Master Mailer, this is Lorenz, Baron of Rothvogel, a great lord from the countryside near Worms. Lorenz says good to see you, Father Thomas. It is nice to be remembered fondly. I only wish all of your neighbors were as welcoming. Thomas says well, yes. What brings you back to our little town? Lorenz says my wife and I were returning from a trip to Venice. We spent a few days in Innsbruck and it was terribly dull. I mean, it has a certain charm common to these alpine cities, but the place was crawling with nobles for the emperor's diet. Thomas says the emperor. Was he there? Did you see him? Lorenz says oh, briefly, but he was sitting for a portrait at the time. Quite lovely. I didn't want to bother him or the painter. Option 1 of 3 who was the artist, my lord? Option 2 of 3 why was the diet assembled, my lord? Option 3 of 3 say nothing. Option 2 of 3 why was the diet assembled, my lord? Lorenz says oh, nothing you need to worry about. Austrian things. Habsburg things. Boring even for nobles. Anyway, my wife wanted to stay a bit longer in Innsbruck and I decided to ride ahead to make a visit to Kiersau. I heard Father Matthias died shortly after my last visit, of course. Thomas says a great loss for the Abbey and for us all. Lorenz says indeed. By good fortune, I recently came across a copy of the Historiatasche he was reading during my last visit. Father Matthias was hoping to find a second copy to corroborate the contents of the first. It contains some fascinating details about the history of this place. I'm afraid they might even cause a bit of a scandal. Thomas says ah, yes. Lorenz says but I must be off. There will be time enough to discuss Tassing's past later. I commissioned a manuscript from the Abbey through Father Gernot and I have come to check on its progress. Thomas says oh. My lord, if you have come to see your manuscript, you should speak with young Master Mailer here. Option 1 of 2 not quite a true master yet. I still have to marry and be approved by our city council. Option 2 of 2 it is an honor to meet you, my lord. Option 1 of 2 not quite a true master yet. I still have to marry and be approved by our city council. Thomas says Andreas is a journeyman artist from Nuremberg. For the next few months, he's also helping in the Abbey's scriptorium. Lorenz says a Nuremberger artist working in an Abbey scriptorium? In 1518? Oh, we should talk, Andreas. I must know the story. Option 1 of 3, of course my lord. It would be an honor. Option 2 of 3 well, I'm already late to the Abbey but I suppose it's all right. Option 3 of 3 surely my lord would find little entertainment or companionship in me. Option 1 of 3, of course my lord. It would be an honor. Lorenz says wonderful. It's so rare to find someone in the countryside who knows anything about art. Thank you for the introduction, Father Thomas. Come to supper at the Abbey tonight. I'm inviting you to the abbot's table. Thomas says. Did the abbot invite me? Lorenz says, oh, don't worry about it, Father. Just show up after Vespers. What is he going to do, refuse us? Thomas says I. Lorenz says excellent. We will see you then. My claws, I'm dismounting. Run ahead of us and take the horses to the Abbey's guest house. I'd like to take my time talking with Master Mailer. I'll meet you there. My claws says at once, my lord. Lorenz says so then, a journeyman from Nuremberg. Forgive me for saying so, but you seem a little old to not yet be a master. Are you unmarried? Player says no, I'm not married, but in truth I came to my vocation later than my father and brothers. I was in university for a number of years, at Erfurt. Lorenz says Erfurt. Wonderful. The same university as Martin Luther. Have you read his works? Tremendous mind. He says things about the church that should have been said years ago. Might get him into trouble, but he's a brave, brilliant man. Wait, you may have even met him. Did you? You must tell me. Player says no. He was a few years ahead of me. Option 1 of 2 still, his ideas do seem fascinating. Option 2 of 2 his ideas don't hold much interest for me, I'm afraid. Option 1 of 2 still, his ideas do seem fascinating. Lorenz says I agree, wholeheartedly. I simply must meet him if I get the chance. I wonder if the good brothers of the Abbey have heard of him. Perhaps they have even read his list of 95 theses against the Church. Father Matthias was not above having a lively debate. I hope Father Gernot does not disappoint in that regard, but enough about Luther for now. Tell me about your university studies. Option 1 of 2 forgive me, Baron, but did you attend university? You seem very well educated. Option 2 of 2 why are you so interested in my education? Option 1 of 2 forgive me, Baron, but did you attend university? You seem very well educated. Lorenz says no. My family is merely wealthy enough to have provided me with all of the books and tutors a child could dream of. I love all knowledge, from Aristotle and Cicero to Ficino and Erasmus, and everyone in between and yet to come. Player says I may have misjudged the Baron. It seems he is as well read as any university student. Lorenz says in truth, I am simply happy to speak with another well-educated man. Now then, did you earn your doctorate? Player says no, I didn't. Only a master's degree. I started working toward a doctorate, but didn't finish. Lorenz says oh, that's a shame. Well, what was your area of study? Option 1 of 3 theology. Andreas has a strong understanding of Catholic theology, biblical knowledge, canon law, heresies, and similar subjects. Option 2 of 3 imperial law. Andreas knows the basics of the fractured systems of laws that govern the various states of the Holy Roman Empire. Option 3 of 3 medicine. Andreas is familiar with the basics of human biology, medicine, and illness. Option 1 of 3 theology. Andreas has a strong player says theology, as odd as that may seem. Lorenz says not odd at all. It's a good field of study if you want a position in the church. My late uncle was the abbot of Fulda. I spent many hours reading the manuscripts in their library with his permission. He was a pious enough man, I suppose, but he wielded great power from that abbey. Adelia says you. If I had any faith I would have prayed you'd never show your face here again. Curse you, Lorenz Rothvogel. Perched as dogs tearing you to pieces would be too kind a fate. Lorenz says these rustic communities display a shocking lack of hospitality, don't you think? Option 1 of 2 what was that about? Option 2 of 2 say nothing. Option 1 of 2. What was that about? Lorenz says, who knows? By the time I finish guessing, the old crone will probably be dead. Well, what of your early time in university? Every student must study the trivium and quadrivium, yes? Did you have a favorite subject? Option 1 of 5. Latinist Andreas has a strong command of Latin grammar and vocabulary. He can also easily recall sententiae antiqui, quoted words of wisdom from the Roman Republic and Empire. Option 2 of 5. Logician Andreas instinctively thinks through the implications of information as he receives it, is adept at spatial analysis, and can easily perform complicated calculations in his head. Option 3 of 5. Orator Andreas excelled at rhetoric in university. He is a skilled teacher, persuader, and public speaker. Option 4 of 5. Occultist Andreas knows a soul-endangering amount of theoretical and practical knowledge on alchemy, astrology, theurgy, necromancy, and various magical rites and ceremonies. Option 5 of 5. Heavens and Earth Andreas knows a great deal about the constellations, heavenly bodies, and their movement. He is also familiar with various plants and animals from study and personal experience. Option 2 of 5. Logician Andreas instinctively thinks through the implications of information as he receives it, is adept at spatial analysis, and can easily perform complicated calculations in his head. Player says logic, geometry, and arithmetic. Lorenz says, quite interesting for an artist. Was Aristotle's organon the foundation of your study? Player says yes, the organon for logic and Euclid's elements for geometry, but the past few centuries have yielded wonderful new texts on logic. Peter Abelard provided the foundation of scholastic philosophy and established the primacy of Aristotle's work. The Englishman William of Ockham gave us the Summa Logicae, arguing nominalism against Platonic realism. And of course Thomas Aquinas gave us the tools to employ both faith and reason in the pursuit of truth. Lorenz says all monks and friars, of course. A great deal of work to force Aristotle to fit within the Church's vision of truth. Player says, is that so wrong? Lorenz says, I question that these great men should have had to wrestle logic into what the Church established by fiat and force. And your other studies? Was there anything else you excelled at? Option 1 of 4. Latinist Andreas has a strong command of Latin grammar and vocabulary. He can also easily recall sententiae antiqui, quoted words of wisdom from the Roman Republic and Empire. Option 2 of 4. Orator Andreas excelled at rhetoric in university. He is a skilled teacher, persuader, and public speaker. Option 3 of 4. Occultist Andreas knows a soul-endangering amount of theoretical and practical knowledge on alchemy, astrology, theurgy, necromancy, and various magical rites and ceremonies. Option 4 of 4. Heavens and Earth Andreas knows a great deal about the constellations, heavenly bodies, and their movement. He is also familiar with various plants and animals from study and personal experience. Option 3 of 4. Occultist Andreas knows a soul-endangering amount of theoretical and practical knowledge on alchemy, astrology, theurgy, necromancy, and various magical rites and ceremonies. Player says, I used my access to the university's library to pursue more esoteric interests. Lorenz says, oh? Esoteric how? Player says, mystical texts. Books on alchemy, invoking spirits, divination. Purely academic, of course. Lorenz says, of course. Player says, I started with Ficino's Corpus Hermeticum and my interest only deepened from there. Lorenz says, quite interesting, Andreas. I'll make some time to speak with you more on this topic during my stay. Option 1 of 3. I look forward to it, my lord. Option 2 of 3. As you wish, my lord. Option 3 of 3. Please be discreet about it, my lord. Lorenz says yes. That's why we will talk about it later. Ah, there's the abbey. I have good memories of this place, and of Father Matthias. I was sad to hear of his passing. Player says, how did you come to know him? How did you come to know of Kiersau at all? Lorenz says, my family have been patrons of Kiersau for, oh, I don't know how many generations. Some years ago I heard that Kearsaw still had a wonderful library and artisans. Professional artists have taken over most manuscript production, so I was shocked to find an active scriptorium here. Option 1 of 3. Well, there's not much left of it these days. 2 old men, a young scribe, and me. Option 2 of 3. This is as good a place as any to create art. Option 3 of 3. The artists that remain here are quite talented, if a bit old-fashioned. Option 1 of 3. Well, there's not much left of it these days. 2 old men, a young scribe, and me. Lorenz says, well, perhaps it is nostalgia that brings me back here. I commissioned a manuscript through Father Gernot a year ago. I thought I would stop by and check on the progress. Wait, are you the artist working on it? It's a prayer book with 20 illustrations. Player says I know the work, but no. I do know the artist well, the venerable brother Pierrot. Lorenz says how venerable? Player says he still has his wits and his skills, if that's what concerns you. Brother Pierrot has an incredible talent with color. Lorenz says then I very much look forward to seeing it. Lorenz says my claws, tend to the horses and the baggage. I'm heading up to the abbey. My claws says yes, my lord. Lorenz says well, let's not keep the abbot waiting any longer. Nuns. Quite unusual for a Benedictine house to have monks and nuns, even if they are separated. The church closed most of them centuries ago. But then, Kearsaw is a place out of time in more ways than one. Option 1 of 3. Do you know Mother Cecilia? She seemed to recognize you. Option 2 of 3. Why were they closed? Option 3 of 3. Say nothing. Option 2 of 3. Why were they closed? Lorenz says monks and nuns living side by side cannot behave themselves. I don't blame them, though. The church shouldn't, either. It's just human nature, after all. Ah, you must be Father Gernot. I am Lorenz, Baron of. Gernot says yes, the Baron of Rothvogel. So wonderful to have you here again, we actually did meet on your last visit. Lorenz says if you say so. I am not good with remembering faces. Gernot says please forgive me, my lord, but I wasn't expecting you for another few days. Lorenz says yes, I know, but I wrote ahead. I just couldn't wait to see my manuscript. I'm sure it's no trouble. Gernot says yes. I mean, no. It's no trouble. Did you want to see it now? Lorenz says in a moment. I could do with a bit of refreshment, though. May I grab something from the kitchen? Gernot says. Yes. Certainly, my lord. I will meet you there. Andreas. I don't know what you were doing with the Baron, but I need you in the scriptorium, now. Option 1 of 3, of course father. I'm eager to get to work. Option 2 of 3. Why are you taking this out on me? He's not my problem. Option 3 of 3. Is this a bad time to ask for an advance on my payment for the book of hours? Gernot says. RRRR. Player says I should ask again when he's in a better mood. Maybe I could just convince Brother Matthew to pay me early.